So I've got some pretty strong feelings about this real money auction house that Blizzard has. I think that it's actually a great idea. When it was first announced, I was really against the idea. I thought it was just going to be, the dumbest thing ever. I thought it was going to ruin Diablo. And while it's got its problems, I actually think it's a really good idea. Maybe not in Blizzard's first execution, but I think it's got potential to just, be the next microtransactions 2.0. The reasons for that are because it includes everybody. Nobody's actually left out, because maybe you don't have money to spend to put into the game. You could sell an item and then you have cash to participate. I think that's pretty awesome. The next step is that, or the next reason is that there's no inherent pay-to-win model. Like, it's not going to happen. If all the sales are handled from player to player, there's no way for anybody to be, left out, really. That creates two things. That solves the pay-to-win problem that a lot of microtransaction games have, and it also allows the developers to focus on creating content for everybody. They don't have to worry about creating secondary content that they're going to sell to, generate the revenue for the rest of everything. They could just focus on creating great content once, just great content, putting it out there, and then they can start focusing on the next content. Nobody's, left out, whatever. And then, let's be real here. When you sell an item on the auction house for money, it's a great feeling. I've sold a couple items for like 10 or 15 bucks, and it's awesome. It's not even a lot of money, but I think it actually would sort of legitimize gold farming, and in a lot of ways bring it in a much more legitimate light, because not only would you have a lot more people doing it by hand and legitimately, it would sort of, and because of that, it would kind of crowd out like the Chinese account theft, phishing scams, and all that sort of stuff. Obviously that stuff would be there, but I think there would be a lot more legitimate activity going on. And, maybe one day people could be like, oh, so what do you do for a living? You'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm a lawyer. And this guy could be like, oh, yeah, I'm a gold farmer. It would just be like, whatever. Instead of being sneered at and being like, oh, well, you ruin games or whatever. I don't know. Now, why is Blizzard missing the mark with this Roman auction house? They have this huge opportunity, and I believe they are just throwing it down the drain. The first reason being is that it's behind a $60 paywall. If you spend $60 on this game, you're a lot less likely to put more money into the game. You're like, well, I already spent 60 bucks, why do I have to put more in, But if it's free to play, you're like, oh, well, I just got this game, I just downloaded it, installed it, and it's great. I'm going to throw 20 bucks in, And people are a lot more likely to spend money, I think, if they don't have to do the initial pay. And I think there's potential for a lot more revenue because of, if you create a game with longevity, people will be doing this for years and years, And that kind of ties into the next point I wanted to make, is that Diablo 3 lacks longevity of any kind. The game is getting boring for a lot of people already, and the game's only been out for, 6 weeks or something? Because the end game was Inferno Diablo, and now that people can clear that, there's just really no reason to farm except for the sake of farming. Now, you're like, well, Diablo 2 only had hell, but the thing with Diablo 2 is there was a lot of things to keep people playing. There was PvP, there was ladders, there was just a lot of items that really took a long time to get, and it wasn't just, oh, I already cleared Inferno Diablo, that's it. It was, oh, I can do meth runs and make more money, and then I can go PvP better, or I can, whatever. The next point is that the auction house is a pain in the ass to use. You're limited to 3 stats you can search for, which, as a level 60, anybody who's reached high levels knows that is utterly inexcusable. There's no reason that you should only be able to search by 3 stats and not more. For example, for an item I would want dexterity, vitality, all resist, fire resist, and then maybe some crit chance. Or I want to make sure it has sockets. So that's a minimum of 4 stats that I need as a monk. And if I'm a different class, obviously different classes want different things. Like maybe you want crit and your main stats and, whatever. There's so many stats that people need, it's just impossible to find them. As it is now, you pick the 3 most likely, or the 3 rarest maybe, and then you go sit there and scroll through each individual item for pages and pages and hoping that somebody's put up an item with the right stats at the right price. It's utterly ridiculous. It's a pain in the ass to use, which means people are less likely to use it, which means less money for Blizzard.